Some forests feel wrong the moment you step inside them. Most people believe forests feel peaceful, and during the daytime, that feeling seems completely justified. Sunlight breaks softly through the branches, wind moves gently across the leaves. Families hike comfortably, campers laugh beside fires, and photographers travel deeper into isolated areas without a single moment of concern. But forests change after dark, and that change is almost impossible to understand until you experience it personally. Once darkness settles between the trees, your brain starts reacting differently to every sound surrounding you. A snapped branch suddenly feels deliberate, movement between distant trees feels unnatural. Even the wind begins resembling whispers carried through the darkness. But the real fear does not come from darkness alone. The real fear comes from one specific realization. Forests can hide almost anything, for hours, without anyone ever knowing. Tonight's three stories involve real people who entered the woods expecting completely normal experiences. No warnings, no signs, just ordinary people in ordinary situations. Until something changed everything permanently. And the most disturbing part? None of them ever found complete answers about what was really out there that night. In October of 2019, 27-year-old Marcus Holloway traveled alone to a heavily wooded region outside northern Pennsylvania called Blackwood Ridge. Marcus had years of hiking experience and regularly explored isolated trails without problems, which made him confident enough to spend weekends alone deep inside unfamiliar forests. According to messages later recovered from his phone, Marcus originally planned a short evening hike before returning to a cabin rental nearby, before darkness fully settled across the area. Around 6 in the evening, he sent a voice message to his younger brother, explaining that he discovered an unmarked trail branching away from the official hiking path. At first, Marcus assumed hunters probably created it years earlier, but the deeper he walked, the stranger the trail became. Several trees along the path had handmade figures hanging from their branches. Marcus described them as small, human-shaped dolls made from sticks, string, and torn fabric pieces tightly wrapped together. What disturbed him most was how new they looked. None appeared damaged by weather exposure, meaning somebody had placed them there recently. A second voice message arrived roughly 20 minutes later. This time, Marcus sounded nervous. He explained that he started hearing footsteps somewhere deeper within the woods behind him. Every time he stopped moving, the footsteps stopped immediately as well. Whenever he continued walking, the sound slowly returned from somewhere between the trees. Near the end of the recording, Marcus suddenly lowered his voice almost to a whisper. "They are hanging from every tree now." That was the last message his family ever received that night. Search teams began looking for Marcus the following morning after repeated calls went unanswered overnight. 3 days later, rescuers finally discovered him, sitting beside a fallen tree nearly 2 miles away from the official trail system. Physically, he appeared mostly unharmed, except for deep scratches covering both arms and signs of dehydration. Mentally, however, something had clearly changed. According to official reports, Marcus repeatedly insisted someone followed him silently through the forest for hours while remaining hidden beyond visible range. He claimed every direction eventually brought him back toward the same trail filled with hanging figures, no matter how carefully he tried escaping the area. Investigators searched the surrounding forest extensively afterward. They never found the trail Marcus described, and according to relatives close to him, Marcus completely stopped hiking alone after returning home. During the summer of 2021, 3 longtime friends named Daniel, Chris, and Avery planned a weekend camping trip near Hollow Creek National Forest, close to the Oregon border. The group had gone camping together many times before, so the trip initially felt completely routine. The first evening passed normally enough. They cooked dinner beside a narrow creek, talked beside the fire for several hours, and listened to music quietly while darkness slowly covered the surrounding woods. Around midnight, however, Avery mentioned hearing knocking sounds somewhere beyond the trees behind their campsite. At first, nobody thought much about it. They assumed another camper nearby might be chopping wood unusually late at night. But eventually the sound repeated again with a pattern that immediately felt unsettling once they paid closer attention. 3 slow knocks. Then silence. Roughly 30 seconds later, the exact same pattern echoed again from another direction deeper inside the woods. The knocking continued for almost 20 minutes before suddenly stopping completely. Eventually, the group returned to their tents, believing another campsite probably caused the strange noise. Around 3 in the morning, Chris woke suddenly after hearing slow footsteps moving directly outside his tent. The footsteps sounded careful, deliberate, almost like someone was circling the campsite while trying not to make noise. Chris quietly called out, expecting Daniel or Avery to answer immediately. Nobody responded. Feeling uneasy, he unzipped the tent slightly and scanned the area using a flashlight. Both friends remained asleep exactly where they should have been, yet muddy footprints clearly surrounded the campsite, despite heavy rainfall earlier that evening. According to Chris, the footprints appeared unusually large and barefoot, despite freezing temperatures near the creek. The disturbing part was how several tracks stopped abruptly without continuing anywhere afterward. The group packed their equipment immediately after sunrise and decided leaving early felt safer than spending another night there. While gathering supplies beside the creek, Avery discovered a disposable camera partially buried beneath wet leaves roughly 20 yards away from their campsite. Curious and unsettled, they later developed the film while driving home that afternoon. Most photographs showed ordinary forest scenery taken during daylight hours. But the final pictures changed everything. One image clearly showed Daniel sitting beside the fire from somewhere hidden inside the woods several hours earlier. Another captured Chris entering his tent shortly before midnight. The final photograph was blurry and dark, although it unmistakably showed somebody standing directly behind Avery while he adjusted camping equipment beside the fire. None of the 3 men recognized the figure. Police later searched the area, but never identified who took the photographs or why somebody secretly watched them for hours without revealing themselves once. Years later, Chris admitted one detail still terrifies him most. Whoever took those pictures stayed close enough to hear every conversation they had that night. February of 2016, emergency dispatcher Rachel Turner became stranded overnight after losing control of her vehicle during a severe snowstorm outside West Virginia. Her car slid across an icy section of road before crashing into a ditch, surrounded by dense forest on both sides. Although the collision caused only minor injuries, Rachel quickly realized her phone signal had disappeared completely and temperatures outside were dropping dangerously fast. After unsuccessfully attempting to restart the engine several times, she decided remaining inside the locked vehicle until morning represented the safest option available. Around midnight, Rachel heard someone shouting faintly somewhere deeper inside the woods. At first, she assumed another stranded driver nearby might need help because the voice sounded distant and distorted by wind moving through the trees. But over the next several minutes, the voice gradually became clearer while repeating the exact same sentence again and again. "Can you help me find my daughter?" Rachel later explained that something about the voice immediately felt wrong, despite sounding calm and human. The tone never changed naturally between repetitions, almost like the exact same recording kept replaying endlessly somewhere beyond the darkness. Eventually, the voice stopped. Several minutes later, it returned again from the opposite direction. Rachel stayed inside the vehicle while trying convincing herself exhaustion and fear were affecting her imagination after hours spent isolated during dangerous weather conditions. But shortly after 1:30 in the morning, she noticed footprints appearing beside the passenger side window, one at a time, slowly emerging from the darkness despite nobody visible standing nearby. Then came the knocking. 3 heavy taps struck the rear passenger window hard enough to shake the vehicle slightly. Rachel screamed and looked toward the glass, expecting to finally see someone standing outside. There was nobody there, only darkness and falling snow, illuminated by weak headlights reflecting against the empty road behind her. Then the voice returned one final time. Only now it sounded directly beside the driver's side door. "Please help me find my daughter." Rachel kept every door locked until sunrise finally arrived several hours later. State troopers located her shortly after 8 in the morning, after road crews noticed the damaged vehicle partially hidden beside the highway. Authorities later searched the surrounding forest thoroughly, but discovered no evidence suggesting another person had been present during the storm. Months afterward, Rachel transferred away from overnight emergency dispatch work because the experience left her struggling with severe anxiety whenever she found herself alone late at night. And according to Rachel, the most terrifying part was not hearing the voice itself. It was the feeling that whatever stood outside the car already knew she was completely alone, long before it ever started speaking. Some forests never feel empty again. The terrifying thing about forests is not simply their darkness or isolation. It is the realization that once visibility disappears between the trees, you never truly know who or what might already be watching from deeper inside the woods. Subscribe carefully. Some stories become much harder to explain after midnight.